We've been talking about miracles happen when we believe in God. And that's a big thing in our world today because there's a lot of people struggling to believe. There's a lot going on in everybody's lives. And we have found, some that we prayed for early and we saw God do mighty things. Now they're getting repercussions of what they had. And when you see repercussions, you wonder, God, why? Why did I have to have anything like this? Those that are losing their hair now, those that are their memories starting to go, and they're not old people like us. They're young. Not quite as young as you, LaShawn, but young. One of the most remarkable things about the Bible narrative is the presence of miracles. By miracles, we mean events and occurrences that cannot be explained by the laws of nature that we are familiar with. I remember as a kid when the birth of an animal, when you went out and saw things, we weren't raised to get squeamish. We expected certain things to happen because we'd seen them all our lives. When I would talk to kids sometimes as I got older how they used to run to town to get food. We didn't. All the food we had, everything we ate was grown right there on the farm. You didn't have to go anywhere. One thing we did have to do is we had to take all our meat, the cows we butchered or the pigs or anything else, we took it to a meat locker. That was always in town. But we didn't have freezers like we have today. We didn't have those things. We didn't have a cold stream to put meat in like the Indians and the hunters used to do. So you had to go into town to a big meat locker. Once a month you went into town. That was it. If you were lucky, you were one of the ones chosen to go. And you got to see different people, cars and things. It was really kind of a miracle. But other than that, what you saw was the people in your home and the people in your community. In both the Old and New Testament, we read of miraculous healings of the dead being raised, of food being multiplied. Water is a good example of how the elements of nature acted in extraordinary ways. The children of Israel walked through the Red Sea and the River Jordan. Bitter water was made sweet by throwing a branch into it. And water came from a stone from both Moses and Samson. Iron flowed on water for Elijah, and both Jesus and Peter walked on water. There were things that we were told. We believed the people that we were listening to. We trusted those people as kids. Whatever Dad said, you better believe it. Otherwise, he had a way to make you believe. And you didn't want too much of that. And so you believed. But what are we to make of these miracles? One common explanation is that these stories are myths and legends. It is true that some of the Bible stories, such as Noah and the universal flood and Jonah, who was swallowed by a great fish, seem to be somewhat similar to myths and legends of other ancient people. But on the other hand, the Apostle Paul, who is the essence of logic and reason, reports of the signs and wonders and mighty deeds that he performed. 2 Corinthians 12:12. To assume that he exaggerated and lied, or that his letters were changed later, challenges the fundamentals of our faith. But a major tenet of our Christian faith is that the Bible record is true and accurate, including the accounts of the miracles. See, we have to grow up. We're either going to believe or we don't. It's our choice. When you think about Adam and Eve in the garden, you think of everything they walked through, all the stuff that they saw, and yet supposedly a serpent come up and tricked Eve, and she did something she shouldn't have. But Adam was standing next to her when she did it, so he was as guilty of it. But think about everything they had. Think about being able to walk outside, always be comfortable, always be happy in your surroundings. Nothing bad is there, except you make that one mistake. But don't we make that one mistake ourselves? When people get into drugs and alcohol and in the illicit sex, when they begin to follow a path that is not something what God intended for them, they know it. They know it. Eve chose to listen to somebody she shouldn't have. My goodness, we have today all kinds of people that we should listen to. So we stay away and we don't hear it. But do we study the faith? Do we study the Word? Do we spend our time with God? We got to be listening to somebody. We have to. Nobody can sit here and figure all this stuff out by themselves. So we got to have somebody to listen to. The Bible indicates that miracles will be a continuing part of Christian experience, not limited to ancient times. Jesus said, "He who believes in me, the works that I do, will he do also." When we think about multiplying the fish here, we think about walking in water, we're supposed to be able to do those things too. But how? How are we able to do the things that he did? And greater works than these will he do, because I go to the Father. John 14:12. And these signs will follow those who believe. In my name they will cast out demons, they will speak with new tongues, they will take up serpents, and if they drink anything deadly, it will by no means hurt them. They will lay hands on the sick and they will recover. Because the Bible tells us to. It says, go to the elders of the church. I guess that would be us. I'm trying to figure out who's the oldest. Art, you may be the oldest one here. So we'll go to Art and check it out. Is this what you want us to do? See, God does. He wants us to have that faith to believe. The Apostle Paul asserted that all Christians are to be given spiritual gifts. And among these gifts are healing and the working of miracles. 1 Corinthians 12:9-10. All of us have gifts. We have some. Some of us are just big mouths. That's me. Somebody that was willing to stand up and speak out. We've been in places where we just started singing. Just because God wanted us to do that, we did it. And we didn't let one person sing alone. We all joined together. If one person's going to make a fool out of themselves, let's all make a fool together. We used to have a sign, the teenagers in Keystone First Assembly, if I'm to be a fool for anybody, I'll be a fool for Christ. You know, because at least I got somebody to back me up. Now, how does he back me up? When he split the people on the sidewalk, walking through, and he spoke into my life, if I can split the Red Sea, surely you can do this too. And so you follow his lead. You know, one thing, God never turns to the right or the left. He always goes straight ahead. And he's expected you to go straight ahead behind him. There is nothing in any of these or other scriptures that would indicate that miracles would be unusual, limited to just a few super Christians, or limited to the first century. There's nothing about that. When you think and follow Gideon, mighty man of God, here's this little dude. That's why I like being little. Little dude that listened. That's all he did. He just listened and followed instructions. Go closer. Listen to what they're saying. Those people down there were scared to death of him. See, they'd heard about it. They've heard about you. They've heard about the God that you serve, but are you going to be willing to speak on his behalf? I mean, that's really what it's all about. Will you speak in his behalf? Because he will answer. If you have the faith to believe, it's amazing what he can do. But we have to do our little part. We have to speak the words up. Why do we see so few miracles today? The main reason is the lack of faith. A man brought a son to the Jesus disciples hoping for a miraculous healing of his leprosy, but the disciples were not able to heal the boy. Jesus told the father, if you can believe, all things are possible to him who believes, Mark 9:23. In our modern scientific age, it is difficult for people to believe that a miracle could happen. And this attitude of self is a barrier preventing it. We have a hard time. Our world does. Believe in things. To have the faith to believe. To continue to pray and believe. It's hard in our world. Why? Because we watch everything on TV. Turn the TV off. Stop listening to the people who are telling you things. And start listening to one who is telling you things. That's God himself. That's hard. It's more fun to watch it on TV. See, I can watch on TV. I can find a show that will show me anything I want to see on TV. I remember when they landed on the moon, and I remember, 10 years ago or so, where they actually had the landscape made to look exactly like it did the moon. It said they never went to the moon. They never did. Here's where they did it. We could build the landscape. We could build anything and let you see that it wasn't real. And that's what happens. The people of Nazareth could not believe in Jesus because they had known him as a young boy. And he did not so many mighty works that because of their unbelief. Matthew 13:58. See, we have to believe. We have to have the faith to believe. Just like in the boat when he stood up and said, "Peace, be still." They could have done exactly that because he was there. If they really believed and had faith in him, he was laying there sleeping. They were running around the boat like what they used to call chicken with your head cut off, trying to figure out what to do, and then said, "Aren't you worried? Don't you care that we're going to die?" Think about it. He's sleeping. He wasn't worried about it. They didn't have the faith to believe in who he was at that point in time. Christians do not expect to perform miracles because they do not cultivate the faith they need in order to do so. Faith. The substance of things hoped for, but the evidence of things unseen. Do we have the faith to believe that we can actually do what he says we can do? See, we're not doing it in our name, we're doing it in his. We don't do things in the name of Wayne or Art or Karen or Larry. We do it in the name of Jesus. But you and I have to have the faith to believe. And that in our world today is tough. See, we see too much. Blind people don't see. They believe. I was watching a movie the other day. This guy told this girl, he said, "You're beautiful." Heck, she'd never seen herself. She had no idea what beauty was. She said, "If you say so, I'll believe it." And that's how we have to be with Christ. If he tells you something, you're going to believe it or not. You got to think back so many years with these people. Things that happened, things that they saw. Imagine David in front of a guy 9 foot tall. See, I always said David to me was the 12-year-old boy because that's when we first started really to learn about who he was. And at 12 years old, I was 5'3". I went into high school at 17, so I guess I'd have probably been 4'6". I don't know. 9 foot tall. And here's a little tiny kid down here. He looked up at him. He wasn't scared of him. See, God had raised him up with lions and bears, oh boy. God had showed him what God was capable of in David's life if David would trust. David learned such faith back at that time. What were we learning at that time? And that's what we have to look. When the disciples failed to heal the boy with leprosy, Jesus told them that the boy's illness was caused by a particularly stubborn form of demonic influence. This kind came out only by prayer and fasting. Do we fast? You know, I'm sorry, We make fasting to me a joke sometimes because we fast the things that we can do. So many people fast TV, they fast the computer, they fast the things that is easiest for them. They don't always fast the things that would get them closer to God. They begin to fast those things that is easiest for them to do. And we don't get as much out of it then. Fast talking on the phone, fast playing basketball, fast playing games on the computer. We can go outside and play. I don't need the computer. I can go out with my friends. I don't need to watch TV. And see, we make things easy for us. But there was nothing easy about it. If you honestly believe and think and care about the person that you're going to pray for, then you have to pray and fast in earnest. That little girl that did not make it, Jeff and Andy's little girl, man, they prayed. They brought in 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 different churches would come in and pray. God took her home. He healed her. He healed her the way that he wanted to. When my mother-in-law prayed for me and I was legally blind, God healed me, but he took her home. See, she cared about me. She prayed in earnest for me, but she was the one who was dying. But she said, God, heal him. That's my son-in-law. That's my daughter's husband, my grandkids' father. She prayed in earnest for me. I think Sarah, what she would say, God, heal him and take me home. It was okay. See, what are we in earnest about? Why don't we see so many miracles today? Because we're not willing to fight for them. We're not willing to stand up for them. That's the problem. It's our relationship with God that's at fault. Because we're not going to spend the time with him that we need to spend. We're not going to pray daily. We're not going to lift up our friends daily. We don't have that real relationship with God we have a form of godliness, but we deny the power thereof. Because see, that's risky. What if you tell somebody, I'm going to pray for you, and nothing happens? See, it's not on you, it's on God. Our point is to lay hands on the sick and pray. It's God's job for the healing. When the fish and the loaves multiplied, what did Jesus do? He lifted it up to the Father. And he blessed it. He knew what to do, and he was trying to give us an example of what to do. He was trying to show us our faith has got to be in the Father. You know, he was God the Son. He came, and he was willing to die for each one of us. But what he was showing is it's the Father. It's my Father. He's got to be your Father too. You got to have faith and believe in what he did. You think in the Garden of Gethsemane, he said, if this cup can pass from me, but nevertheless, not my will, Father, but yours. He was letting us know it's not us, it's him. We got to have that faith to believe, to trust. And I'm telling you something, that ain't easy. Because every step you take of faith, there's going to be something that's going to push back against you. It's going to be a temptation. It's going to be something in your past. He is going to constantly remind you of what you did and who you are and that you're not worthy. And they used to always say that, remind him of where he's going to end up at one day. Remind him of what happened to our enemy. When he tries to remind you of who you were and what you did, remind him. Say, no. My Father says that I'll spend eternity with him in heaven. He said, if I will stand up for him, he will stand up for me, and he'd be there with me every day. Faith must be in God and in his word, not in our own or someone else's spiritual gift. The Apostle John wrote, this is the confidence that we have in him, that if we ask anything according to his will, he hears us. And if we know that he hears us, whatever we ask, we know that we have the petitions that we have asked for. 1 John 5:14 and 15. We notice in these verses that we can have faith in that which we ask according to his will, not ours. That's what Jesus said. He said, not my will, Father, but yours. He wanted to do the will of Father, the will of Dad, his Father. He wanted us to understand that it is in us. When we lay hands on sick and pray for people, sometimes people run to us. Pray for me and heal me. Well, we can't. See, they start looking at a natural thing because it's easier. Our faith has got to be in him. We got to tell people it ain't me. It ain't me. I'm not the one doing nothing. All I'm doing is being obedient. If I was to lay hands on the sick and pray. We do our end of the bargain, but God finishes it. And sometimes, we don't have the faith to believe for our own healing. I see people all the time, that will say, they will ask for a prayer. Oh, but I believe. But just in case, we got to get rid of the just in case. And what do you really believe in? Who do you really trust in? What if you die? My mother-in-law, God took her home. She didn't get a healing here, but I did. See, it was more intent for her that I get a healing than for her. She was looking out for her daughter and her grandkids. She was more worried about them than about herself. She wanted to make sure they had a father and a husband. That's where she was. I know she wanted to be here. She died very young. Never got to see her granddaughter. Not here. One day she will. But I believe God lets us see things. And I think God let her see things that weren't even here yet. Because she had that kind of faith. She had that kind of trust. And she was more worried about them than about herself. And that's the way we have to be. We have to put others above ourselves. What do they need? It's kind of funny. We had company come last night to the house, and we ended up way out past here delivering food to a family. And then trying to run back home to be there when company comes. And it was not easy. But God doesn't ask more of us than we can deal with or do if we trust him. And that was the point. We got to pray for a young man that was a Jehovah's Witness out in front of a laundromat yesterday. And then from there out to here with food. We didn't even need to be in that laundromat. They were supposed to have fixed it. We found out the company didn't even call the people to fix it. So we had to run in and wash clothes, get everything dry and clean so I could look good this morning. And then run out here another 30 miles to deliver food to a family and then run back home. But see, we can't let that affect us. We can't say, oh my, I can't do this because I don't have the time, it'll be too inconvenient. But we do. See, that's where the faith was so many times with people. They want the answers, but they don't want to sacrifice. Yeah. Runs up on. You didn't run up and jump on my lap, cat. Nobody wants to sacrifice. Nobody wants to give up anything. We can do the easy stuff. We can call in somebody else to bring the food in and hand it out for us rather than us actually do the work that God requires to go get it, to give the things that He provides. And so we got to stop and think. Faith does not mean that every time we want a miracle, we will get one. If that were the case, there would never be any sickness or death among a faithful Christian community. But there are a number of examples in the Bible that would show that healing and miracles are not always provided, even for people of great faith. God is sovereign, and He decides when a miracle should be granted. Fact is that some miracles do more harm than good, and we should not insist that God provide one. God would love to heal every case of illness and help everyone to have miraculous solutions to all their problems. But that would mean that sinners could do whatever they wanted. There would be no consequences, and the reign of sin would continue forever. See, if we always knew, wow, God will take care of that. He'll cover that up for me. Because sometimes that's what we're asking. We're asking God to cover up for us. We won't do that again, Dad. We won't make the same mistake twice. And then we ask God to take care of it for us. We got to be careful. Got to be careful what we're asking for. We got to think, as Christians, we have to go through stuff so we can share with other people the stuff that God did for us. We made a lot of mistakes in our life as Christians. The only reason we made it through was because of Him. Because we eventually chose to say, God, I choose you. I repent. I ask for your forgiveness. I want to be one of yours. That was it. And we've got to take that same message to people out here. And they've got to see the same things in us that happen, that can happen to them if they have the faith to believe.